it was kinda, he now qualifies it, this bit, so it would be about around here. And I was kinda sitting in this bit. So going from this exact, this is a form of self-censoring. He is stopping himself from going to this precise way he has a need to conceal. He then describes his wife's emotion. Kate was clearly distraught. Now consider this. If your child is missing, you're going to be distraught. Telling us that she's distraught is narrative. It's not necessary to say. I didn't think that she stopped to smoke a cigarette and to look at how beautiful the stars were in the sky. Of course she'd be distraught. Telling us that she was distraught is unnecessary, therefore it's very important. But he now looks to persuade me. Not only was she distraught, but she was clearly distraught. In other words, her affect of being distraught was beyond any debate. So I want you to know that when my child was missing, my wife was really, really, really upset. That's goofy. And that's what this is. It's a need to persuade. That sounds, to the average listener, that sounds goofy. And I jumped up. You know, we did not think that you stopped for a cigarette. We did not think you said, okay, let me have dessert first. This is also unnecessary language. And then he says, kind of disbelief. I believe him. Because he knows it's not true. He knows what he's doing is narrative telling. And so the first thing he's going to say is, where is she? We must find her. No, she can't be gone. She can't. She can't possibly be. How can she be gone? This is an important part for your viewing audience to understand. Guilty people will ask questions. They are looking to see what answers are out there. They're looking for responses from even the interviewer, from police, from the audience. They're floating their alibis to see, will you agree? The first thing that anyone would say if your child was missing is, where is she? Not how can this happen? No, that this can't be happening. Now, we don't even reach denial stage yet. As a father or mother, the first thing we do is, no, I'm going to find her. She wandered out. The door was open. She's out here, let's get her. They know that she didn't wander out. So he artificially not only imputes his emotions into this part of the statement, he artificially inflates both of their emotions. The fact that he says that he had to do something immediately, and I jumped up, it itself is unnecessary. Of course, any father's going to jump up. He has a need to persuade us. He might, at this point, be reliving the emotions, the motions that he went through in this. So he gives us, he wants us to think that he's in denial. She can't possibly be what? He stopped himself. Be dead? How can she be gone is a question. And I said that to Kate, no. And I was saying that to Kate as we were both running. Now this is also interesting, and it may be a little bit overkill, but this is what analysts do. We would take this short answer and analyze it for hours. And just one small point here. And I was saying that to Kate as we were running. Nope. As I was saying that to Kate as we were both running. He has a need to persuade that both were in earnest, both were upset, both were in emergency mode, because they weren't. Those that are in emergency mode don't even need to tell us they're in emergency mode, but they certainly don't need to persuade us. His need to persuade that they were in emergency mode tells us this was not unexpected, this was not an emergency. Richard, he's lying.
Okay.
Police were called within 15 minutes, but they didn't arrive for nearly an hour. It took them another 2 hours before they bothered to seal off Madeleine's bedroom. British investigators later called it the worst preserved crime scene they'd ever encountered. Roadblocks and checks weren't put on Portugal's borders for a full 12 hours. And within days, hundreds of guests, potential witnesses and suspects had checked out and left without ever having been interviewed.
Now, I can't defend what the police did or didn't do. I don't know it. I didn't work with them. I have no association with them. But I do ask your viewing audience to consider that it is very possible that the initial investigators didn't believe they needed to do any of those things.
Yeah.
I'd like you to consider this. I know exactly where that table was. And then he stumbles over to exactly where the table was. Why would he give such an unnecessary detail? Why would we care where the table was located? In resisting interrogations, Navy SEALs use a tactic. If an enemy takes a Navy SEAL, the Navy SEAL is taught to resist the interrogation by giving enough truthful details of something irrelevant to satisfy the interrogators. And so a Navy SEAL is captured, and he talks about how he dives and cleans the ship. And he gives such details that the interrogators think this idiot is someone's job is just to clean the ship, and he's going on and on about every detail of how he does it and how long he's underwater, what tools he uses. Nothing to find here. Jerry shows a stronger or a more efficient level of sophistication and deception in this manner. This is, in fact, what you had mentioned earlier in your question. This is a form of diversion. He is safely going in to describe a table, because that's a safe thing to say. We call this leakage. He knows what happens, or I'll say it this way. The brain knows what happened. He now has to go into the brain and talk about what happened, but not give it away. It's really difficult because he might choose some of the wrong words by accident. So he focuses on a table, and then he stumbles on it because it's such a ridiculous point. He's using a diversion tactic because it's necessary. So what we do is we say, well, here's a diversion tactic. Why would the dad of a missing little girl need to make such effort to divert attention away from what happened?
The night seemed so long. Every second was excruciating, and it was dark, and he just wanted to be light and everybody searching, and Madeline found.
Okay, this particular statement itself is very concerning. First of all, we'd ask the question, for whom was this night so long and so excruciating for? For Kate. Or if we want to listen to her words, it was not even for Kate, it was for you. Listen to what she says. Believe what she says. The night seemed so long, every second was excruciating, and it was dark, and you just want there to be light. Not she, not her as a mother. But by the way, was it excruciating for Madeline to be taken? She shows concern for you or herself and nothing for the child. A parental instinct is so powerful that we've used it in judicial courts since time out of mind. Going back to the Solomonic courts of your Bible lessons, where two women gave birth to children and one woman rolled over and suffocated the child. And they each claimed custody of the living child. Neither wanted custody of the dead child. And it went all the way to Solomon's court, and people who know the story said Solomon said, bring me a sword, cut the living child in half, and give them each half their baby. Solomon had no intention of committing murder. What Solomon had done was repeated both women's arguments. The woman who actually gave birth to the child said, let her, the liar, have the child. Let my child live. And everyone was able to see that's really the mother. He was exploiting maternal instinct. Prior to that, he simply repeated their arguments. And if we listen very carefully, especially as it comes out in Hebrew, it's very simple. This mother says, the dead child is hers, the living child is mine. She mentioned the dead child first. That's what people do. They mention their own first. But this mother says, no, the living child is mine, the dead child is hers. She mentioned the living child first because that's her child. When no one understood that, when no one was listening to the order of which someone spoke, then Solomon called for the sword and said, cut the baby in half and give them each half, without any intention of murder. The maternal instinct came forward, everyone knew. They would have known before the sword was taken if they just listened to each mother. So I ask you to listen to this mother, and listen to her carefully. The night seemed so long, for whom? Every second was excruciating, for whom? It was dark, and you just want there to be light. Okay, let's find out what you want. Let's look at the order. You want there to be light, you want everybody searching, and you want Madeline found. Her priority is light for you Everybody's searching, and Madeline found. Madeline is the last thing in her priority. As a matter of fact, this statement shows that someone was living in excruciating pain. Someone was living in excruciating length of time, impatience. But here is where we expect her to show what Madeline is going through. Where is her teddy bear? Where is her favorite blanket? Where is her favorite toy? Not a single word of concern. Now, why would she give last in her priority Madeline being found? I ask your audience to consider, she doesn't want Madeline found. Any parent, innocent parent, would want that first and foremost. She instead turns to lights, and that would be more further insight psychologically into their own thinking. But her order tells us that the last in her priority is having Madeline found. We also see that the emotion that's used is narrative, but it's also focused towards her. However, in the pronoun you, even that she doesn't take ownership of. I think it was an excruciating night, and I think that her concern for herself is genuine because this is what I'm building towards. Mm-hmm. There's no concern for Madeline by a biological mother and by a biological father because Madeline is dead. Madeline is beyond concern. Madeline is beyond help. There's no more fretting or worrying for Madeline, and that's what's in this statement. Mm-hmm. Is Madeline crying? Does she have her favorite teddy bear? Is she getting her meds? Is she calling out for me, the mother? Is Madeline in excruciating pain? What must Madeline be experiencing in the hands of strangers? These are all things that were not in their language.
Yeah.
And this is consistent. This is not just one interview. These people have always been focused upon themselves. They have always given indication that Madeline will not be found alive, if found at all, and that Madeline being found is not something they want to happen. Mm-hmm. Their concern is always for themselves because Madeline doesn't need concern any longer. The past tense reference is one thing that indicates death, but this is the most powerful part of the analysis, is that they're telling us Madeline is dead. Now I know that people wondered if there was a kidnapping, if they were sold into sex rings, child sex rings, and these things do exist. That's not what's in the parents' language. So I can only say what's in that language. And I'm letting them guide me. I'm letting them dictate to me my opinion by the words that they're choosing. And they're actually going to give us more detail. Mm-hmm. Richard, they're going to confess.
You think so? Oh, you mean in the subtext of the interview? You don't mean literally, do you?
They're in this statement, we're going to see what we call a statement analysis confession. They actually admit to us what happened.
Did you kill your daughter?
No, that's an emphatic no. I mean, the ludicrous thing is what's been purported from Portugal is that Madeline died in the apartment by an accident and we hid her body. Well, when did she have the accident and died? Because the only time she was left unattended was when we were at dinner. So if she died then, how could we have disposed or hidden her body, when there was an immediate threat? It's just nonsense. So, and if she died when we were in the apartment or fell and did something, why would we cover that up?
And this is what we call the embedded confession. This is where a guilty party will put together in their own language what happened. And we need to listen and believe them. We also have the principle of them asking questions. This is very important. They're asking questions to find out how their answers will be responded to. Will it be ridicule? Will it be acceptance? Will it sound sane? Will it help get them off the hook? Listen very carefully to what they say. It's a yes or no question. Did you kill your daughter? No is a good answer. And what I teach investigators to do is when someone is asked a yes or no question is to count on their fingers the number of words following the word no. No. That's an emphatic no. And on and on, and obviously it goes into the point where it goes beyond your 10 fingers. When it goes that long, very simply speaking, there is a need to persuade. So the no is not going to stand on itself. If he said, no, I didn't kill my daughter and I'm telling you the truth, this would be something very strong. And we'd have to ask about her. And we'd also have to ask, did something cause your daughter's death? That sort of thing. But here, no, that's an emphatic no. The first thing we know about his denial is that his denial, from his perspective, needs some help. It's weak. That's an emphatic no. So the first thing is no, okay, an emphatic no. My no needs emphasis. Why does it need to be emphasis? Is one. I mean, the ludicrous thing is what I suppose what's been purported from Portugal is that Madeline died in the apartment by accident and we hid her body. Okay. What he tells us here is Madeline died in the apartment, his words, by an accident, which would support the pronoun we that we heard between mother and child, and we hid her body. I believe him. The reason I say this is an embedded confession is because he is not entering any other language. He's not quoting anyone. For instance, if I said, well, you said that I killed her, that's not an embedded confession because I'm actually quoting you. Here, he's not only is he not quoting anyone, he's only saying what's been purported, not even an accusation. And we need to be listening to him. This now tells me, as an analyst, Madeline died in the apartment. So I know from their language thus far that Madeline is not alive. They are in need of an alibi. The death was not intended, and the location of the death is in the apartment. And again, by accident. And then I know something else now. I know that we hid the body. Jerry and his wife, the two McCanns together, they worked together to hide her body. Then he goes into questions, and this is where guilty parties are looking to see what a response is. They're disguised as rhetorical questions, but they want to see what people respond to them as. This takes place even in the interview process. Well, when did she have the accident and died? Okay, what they want to know is, do people know the exact time of death? Because the only time she was left unattended is not the only time we left her. He's now removing himself from that. Left unattended is passive. Was when we, which shows unity between him and his wife, were at dinner. So if she died then, which this is, we call this an allowance. The father of a missing child is allowing for a scenario that denial will not allow. There's no natural denial. He's saying if she died, then, not even if she was dead, which is itself a red flag, but now about a specific time. How could we have disposed, hidden her body? The word disposed and then hidden, the change there, actually shows respect for Madeline. It's a softer terminology. Not dump the body, and he even changes dispose, a self-correction from disposed to hidden. He now tells us that they didn't dispose the body, they actually hid it. This is why, and this confirms the priority. We want there to be light. We want there to be searching. By the way, we also want them to find Madeline. But it's last on my list of priorities. So I now know that Madeline is dead. Madeline died in the apartment. And listen to his questions. When did we do this? How did we do this? You know, when there's an immediate, it's just nonsense, self-censoring again. And if she died when we were in the apartment or fell and died, why would we cover that up? Okay, that's the most important question he asks. So he now introduces something else that may have happened. Madeline fell. I am concerned and remain concerned that Madeline may have been drugged in any way, shape, or form, whether it be nighttime cough syrup or something more, so that these people could go and have their dinner and their party and get their break and all that, that Madeline awoke and fell and got injured, and the injury was beyond.
Can I just interject with a question, Peter?
Sure.
When he's saying, he's alluding to the fact that he doesn't think they would have had time on that particular evening to deal with the body. Could that suggest that there's been pre-planning and the meal was orchestrated to allow for a window for their phantom abductor? And he's confident that he can show the audience that there's not enough time for them to have done that. So in other words, it's possibly happened on a previous time.
Yes, it is possible. And the focus on time, which he doubles up on,